Good evening.
Hi, everyone.
Good evening.
So you can start the session now. The audience might join very soon as there are many parallel sessions going on. But you can start it on time. Live streaming and recording has started.
I can stop your sharing. Great. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Transforming Wealth and Welfare for Human Prosperity and Wellbeing webinar as part of the Youth Leadership Day Global Leadership in the 21st Century, organized by the Permanent Secretariat of the World Summit of Nobel Peace Laureates in partnership with the World Academy of Art and Science. My name is Kehkasha. I'm connecting with you from Toronto, Canada, and I am delighted to be your moderator for this session. I am the founder-president of Green Hope Foundation, a United Nations Environment Program and United Nations Convention to Combat Desertification accredited social innovation enterprise, whose mission is to empower all sections of civil society, especially young people and women from vulnerable communities, using education for sustainable development as a transformative tool to provide them with the knowledge, skills, and behaviors to think and act for a sustainable future. I am a United Nations human rights champion, a Forbes 30 Under 30, a UN Habitat Young City champion, a member of the World Humanitarian Forum's Youth Council, the winner of the International Children's Peace Prize, and the youngest recipient of Canada's Top 25 Women of Influence. I'm also the first ever winner of the Voices Youth Gorbachev-Schultz Legacy Award for my work on nuclear disarmament. This year has been the most challenging in living memory. The pandemic has brought the world to its knees, sparing not even the mightiest of nations. And of greater concern is the fact that its impacts have been more severe and disproportionate on vulnerable and marginalized communities and in developing nations and in LDCs, pushing them deeper into the mire and widening the already existing opportunity gap. And this rising resource gap in almost every sector, be it food, jobs, health, is skewing the balance of our economies and societies. And this gap continues to widen dramatically over the last few years. And as we know, this is causing unprecedented social tensions, the scale of which is much larger than before due to an increasing population, with the increase more marked in affected vulnerable communities. So the process of rebuilding better must begin with those who are the farthest first. And this continues to be our focus at Green Hope Foundation, working at a grassroots level with people and communities whose stories and sufferings do not make it to mainstream media. They are largely invisible, non-persons, if you will, despite their overwhelmingly large numbers. Many of them don't have formal education, and in many cases do not exist on government records because they don't have identity cards, possibly because they don't know about their rights or don't have the liberty or freedom or time from eking out a living. And it is this inequality that is the most important contemporary issue that needs to be addressed and acknowledged by transforming the wealth and welfare so that these become the drivers for human progress. In the next 10 years, we will probably have at least 500 million more people. We will have less drinking water, less forests, less space in our already overcrowded cities. But we will have more deserts, more pollution, more billionaires, and more poor people. We will have hyperloops, more of genetic cloning, but no real solutions that can prevent another pandemic unless we act now. There is ample evidence of what has and has not worked to reduce inequality. And inaction is typically not due to a lack of technical advice or even in most cases adequate capacity. More often, mobilizing support for policy responses to inequality runs into a wall of vested interests. Governments hesitate and procrastinate in overcoming the political constraints They do not invest in mechanisms that can help collect disaggregated data to assess the extent and nature of inequalities, and critically lack the agenda to measure the success of interventions to reduce them. So changing this deeply entrenched lethargy to address inequality will indeed test leadership at all levels, global, regional, and even in our local communities, as it will require leaders to take actions that will not make the rich richer. And the current situation is even more difficult than where we were just a few months ago. And the global economy is expected to contract by a staggering 4.3% in 2020. Millions of jobs have already been lost, millions of livelihoods are at risk, and an estimated additional 130 million people will be living in extreme poverty if the crisis persists. And these are very grim figures that reflect the immense challenges and human suffering caused by this pandemic. Nor is an end to COVID-19 in sight. In many countries, the number of new COVID-19 cases is rising at an alarming rate. And for many, a second wave is already an unwelcome reality, as we're experiencing here in Canada. Much uncertainty remains about how and when the pandemic will run its course, but the unprecedented economic shock generated by this global health emergency has already exposed the global economy's pre-existing weaknesses, severely setting back development progress around the world. So reducing the poverty-related impact of the crisis and improving welfare requires the adoption of universal social protection policies in developing countries to help cushion the impact and enable societies to recover better. And it also requires building productive capacities through, for example, enhanced support for microenterprises and SMEs to help increase their capacity to create decent jobs. The pandemic has underscored the importance of business facilitation tools such as contactless transaction technology and supporting for entrepreneurship. Finally, the current crisis is acting as a catalyst for deep transformations in global value chains related to new technologies, growing economic nationalism, and sustainability imperative. And the pandemic is also leading to redefinitions of the investment development paradigm and sharpened focus on investment policies for sustainable development, on the science and policy interface, on the need to address widening digital divides, and on the need to ensure sustainable and resilient transport infrastructure and trade facilitation. However, the crisis is exerting negative effects on international production, challenging the role that global value change can play to support the achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals. But that said, it's also opening new production possibilities for responding to the health and resilience related imperatives. And in this context, investment policy, science, technology, and innovation policy, e-commerce strategies, sustainable transport infrastructure, and trade facilitation must all play significant roles in the response to the pandemic and, of course, an eventual better recovery from all of its effects. And on that note, we shall begin our panel discussion. Today's panelists bring with them unique perspectives on this very topic of discussion. I would also like to request our audience to please post your questions in the Q&A box, not the chat, so that our panelists can respond during the Q&A session. So I shall now invite our first panelist, Mozamel Amman, who is an entrepreneur at heart and loves the intersection of technology, entrepreneurship, and impact. As a founding member of several startup organizations, Mozamel has gained a unique perspective at looking at problems. He is a firm believer that with privilege comes great responsibility, and it is this driving force that sustainable social ventures are built on. Mozamel is the co-founder and CEO of Startupistan and Start Steps. So, Mozamel, you have the floor.
Thank you so much, Kekashan, for the introduction and also giving me the chance to speak today. Can everybody hear me loud and clear?
Yes.
Perfect, great. Well, thanks a lot for putting everything in context. And we've seen, of course, we definitely talked a lot about the negative imperative that has been caused by COVID and all the underlying conditions that existed before even COVID, and COVID just made them more obvious in terms of the biggest part that maybe I specialize on is the digital divide that we're talking about. And entrepreneurship can be the driving force to go about this. So one of the key things that we have learned in 2014, by maybe going one step before that, we launched our program, Startupistan, in Kabul in Afghanistan this year. And in the beginning of the year, in January and February, we were running our classes and the programs and everything was running because it was possible to have it in a physical environment. And the moment the lockdowns came in, we were almost zero. There were no ways to basically run the classes because you have electricity problems, you have internet problems, you have device problems. And this basically shows you that those economies would be the hardest hit because there's no infrastructure, there's no way to take things to an environment. While on the other hand, the parallel universe that we live in, since I'm based in Berlin and we run the same kind of digital courses and classes in Germany, it was just a switch by telling people, well, you can just dial in, here's the Zoom link and join your class tomorrow. And this shows in basically that how empowering two things, the technology and also the infrastructure and the environment could be in terms of keeping things alive, and how this divide needs to be addressed. It leads to a range of things in this sphere, so to say.
Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. And you're right. It is absolutely critical that we bridge this digital divide so that we can actually ensure that young people, children, and people all around the world are able to connect with one another despite the lockdown and despite the pandemic. So thank you so much for sharing that with us. And with that, I shall invite our next speaker, Alexandra Litkins, who is the HR team leader, translation team coordinator, and recruiter for Health and Help, an NGO that works in places where it is difficult for people to receive medical help. They build clinics to provide care for patients of every nationality, faith, and sexual orientation, and patients receive the necessary medical treatment regardless of their ability to pay for it. So, Alexandra, you have the floor.
Thank you so much. Hello, everyone. I am honored to start, and then I will pass my word to the co-founder of the organization, my colleague, Victoria. For my part, I prepared for you to say that our organization, I believe, is the unique project which was created by two great persons, so Victoria and Karina. I believe that Victoria will share her story a bit later. And our organization works only because of the volunteers. We basically are 95% consisting from volunteer team, and our team is spread all over the world. And also all these volunteers which are supporting the project online are helping a lot for our clinics, because we all work for only one goal: to support two clinics in Guatemala and Nicaragua, which were built a few years ago. The Nicaraguan clinic was finished at the end of the last year. And in these clinics, doctors and administrators are helping the local people to get the basic medical help and support them in order to not let them die from the basic curable diseases, which are really not a big deal for most of us in in other countries. And our online team is big, consists of 12 volunteers, and they are all over the world supporting these 2 clinics with grant writing, fundraising, PR, HR, and a lot of different issues. And leading a team remotely and leading the team of volunteers, which consists from just volunteers, it's a challenge, I believe, for the team and for us. So because the team requires time and effort from our side, from the side of our co-founders and the management team. So our volunteers really, they believe in what we do, and they have a lot of motivation, and they are happy to be a part of this initiative. And I think that a volunteer community is developing with every year, and from where the motivation comes for such an extra mile, which all these people are doing every day within our project, because all of them have their personal life, their work, their studies, and they are finding time and effort in order to share their expertise, their experience, and their time for us. And they are doing it completely for free, and their professionalism and passion and ability to attract amazing people to the teams and to the clinics drives the whole project a lot. And I believe that the opportunity which our project gives to not only online volunteers, but also to offline volunteers is unique, because we believe that we can become better people by helping others. And this is really important for us, and we try to distribute this message and this motivation to our team. And for example, by myself, I'm not a doctor. I cannot sew wounds. I cannot diagnose. All I can do is share my time, expertise, and resources in order to help and to support the team. And to attract volunteers to such kind of charity project is also not a very easy task. For example, we share all the information only through social media, and this is how we live and work and how we distribute all the information. And the selection process for the potential candidates is complicated, and it is complicated not because we like to torture our candidates, but because we need to be sure and confident that these volunteers will make it through there in Guatemala, in Nicaragua, far away from big cities, from internet, from electricity. And this is also a challenge for similar organization like ours, and this is really a rare opportunity which Health and Help can give for the external community. And this is how we try to bring more purpose in what we do, and this is what attracts people who have regular work and regular life. So I think I can give the word to Victoria, if there is no question.
Sure, absolutely. And thank you so much, Alexandra. And you're right, it does require time and effort to put your passion into play. And it's wonderful to hear how motivated your volunteers are to bring about positive change, going that extra mile because they're so passionate. So thank you once again. And I shall now introduce our next speaker, who is Victoria Valikova. She's the founder, MD, and Director of Resources of Health and Help. Victoria is an MD and a specialist in infectious diseases, tropical medicine, and public health in low-resource settings. Health and Help's Guatemala Project Clinic provides healthcare services in the Highland region to a population of over 25,000 people, providing treatment every day without exception, as well as educational lectures and prophylactic measures to prevent diseases in children and adults. Victoria, the floor is yours.
Thank you guys so much for such a great start. And I'm honored that me and Sasha today can join you, even though it's a late evening from Russia, where we are right now. And I want to say that you're speaking of the COVID a lot now, and all the world is very frightened and scary. And in case that we basically run 2 clinics that provide healthcare for the people that die from the very simple diseases, I would say, like diarrhea, kids dying from malnutrition, Mozamel probably knows more than all of us, how starving kids is complicated to treat. Women just could not receive contraception because the men are basically stopping them from coming to hospitals and clinics, and basic health services are not able in the regions where we work, because our clinics, as Alexandra already said, are very remote. In the regions, we call them corredor seco in Spanish. That's something like a dry corridor. That means that it's very hard to get there. It's nothing grow there. It's no rain when it's need to be rain. So people could not grow anything, and they could not, a lot of people don't have anything to eat. Basically, in our clinic in Nicaragua, there is still no electricity, still no running water, no roads, no public transport. People live in the conditions that are hard to say that they even have homes. They have something like a plastic bags around the wooden sticks. And in these conditions, when we hear about COVID, and we understand completely 100% that it's a big emergency pandemic, and we need to put resources in that, but we still have people that dying from the diseases, and they will die today, tomorrow, and all the days. Not really depends on what will happen to the world. And we are a little scary that during this time we start to have even more patients, because all the governmental structures could not get the patients because they are overloaded with COVID patients, and the health systems that are already being broken in these countries now are even worse. And in these conditions, working and trying to keep the team that is motivated to have patients not be scared of coming when they're severely sick is very complicated. Also, as getting medications and other supplies in the country, because borders are closed because of the pandemic. Also is getting resources, because if people see a bigger emergency, other small things like diarrhea or malaria or something that were big things before, it's very hard to be having fundraising for. So, but even though I would say that we really try to show people that they shouldn't be forgetting about these things, even though it's very cool to support other projects that are in terms of what is in trend now. That is definitely what we all familiar with. We try to keep people thinking still about the things that were there forever and that will be there. And we still try to make it happen that countries allowed our volunteers and our people in the country and fighting to get the supplies in the country. And we are really trying to make our volunteers not being scared about being locked down in the country or whatever. because what Alexandra was telling before, like we saying that with the helping others, we become better people ourselves. Is the true for us, the managing team, for our volunteers, for our staff, for even for our patients when we discipline them, like to come in time and to respect the time of our doctors, even they become a better people, like coming to us and having their services with us. And to sum it up, I just want to say that we are really, like, we're still working during the COVID, our two clinics that are pretty remote. We do have some COVID patients, of course, because sometimes people come with a fever and we don't know what is going on. But we're still trying to make the basic health services, the contraception, the like diabetes program that we have, the high blood pressure, malnourished kids, healthy baby, healthy mother programs, our priorities, because we need people to receive basic medical care, because without basic medical facilities, a lot of people will be die before pandemic will even over. So we want to remind everyone that this is important, and to support like small organizations that fighting for everybody's right to be healthy is very important. And we want to, of course, invite everybody to come and join projects like this. And thank you one more time very much for the things you're doing, guys.
Thank you so much for sharing that with us. And you are so right. By helping people, we definitely become better people ourselves. And I can completely understand where you are coming from in terms of addressing issues that were already there before. I think all our panelists today can resonate with that. And COVID has just exacerbated all of these challenges. And a lot of the time, COVID does not have anything to do with those challenges. And it's really sad that people are forgetting about all of these problems that existed before and continue to exist today, because yes, they are focusing on something that is currently cool. But it is the only way that we can actually achieve a sustainable world is if we focus on all of the issues that are facing us today and adopt a intersectional and localized approach. So thank you once again to all of our panelists. We shall now move on to our question and answer session. I would like to remind our audience once again to please post your questions in the Q&A box and not the chat. It's just easier for us to address your questions in that way. So I do see a couple questions in the Q&A box, and I think these are directed to you, Alexandra and Victoria. How do you work with Indigenous people in Latin America? I'm interested in the beliefs of the local people. They usually believe in shamanism or something like that and prefer not to attend to doctors or go to the doctors. And this is from Victoria. So
thank you so much, Victoria, for your question. Actually, Latin America and especially Guatemala are very interesting regions in terms of Indigenous people and traditions and shamanism and all this kind of spiritual life around, and around the medicine as well. So I would say that the first problem that we're facing is that Guatemala has 21 local language, and it's not just the types of Spanish. No, like Spanish is like official language, but there are Mayan languages that are much older and they are very beautiful, but each region has its own language and it's nothing to do with Spanish. So this is the first problem that we're facing, because some of our patients, they don't speak Spanish, and majority of our doctors don't speak local language. So we always need to have a translator. Normally we keeping one from like a village, or like just taking the person from the line, or they ask them to bring the relative that speaks Spanish. But and also speaking about the traditional medicine in Guatemala, you're right, there's still up to 80% of all the birth attending in The small communities and remote villages are attended by comadronas, that's local midwives that have no medical education, and they don't even know sometimes how to read and write, how to take blood pressure, how to put IV, how to measure stuff. They learn by experience, and I'm not saying that they are bad people or their experience doesn't worth anything. It's not true, because they really have experience. Some of them like attend more births than I attend through like my life. So, but the main goals right now in all Guatemala, and us included, is like to teach and educate the local midwives of the basic medical procedures, so they know at least how to take like pulse and the blood pressure, and how to know like dangerous signs of the pregnancy and delivery, that they can work. And we attending birth in the clinic together with local midwives, just because it makes the women much calmer. And as well, it's giving us kind of like a hand, because they know more this, like the philosophy of the mothers, like the behavior, the traditions that we, obviously people that coming from outside, we don't know. And the shamans and people that are prescribing, they call like healers, like the local medicine, we try to be friends with everyone, and we never say that, yeah, like your medicine is bad, or like the shaman that prescribed you this like was bad person. We always tell that they have their methods and we have our methods, so probably together will be even better. Like, not counting the situations when it's something really dangerous for the people health. And there are a lot, and we have like local shamans in each village, and especially in region where we work in Momostenango. It's a Mayan, very indigenous, very nice, beautiful place, and people still following a lot of traditions, and I think it's really cool. They wear traditional clothes, speaking traditional language, they remember their roots, and we trying just to be friends with everybody: Ministry of Health, local clinics, local doctors, shamans, healers, midwives, everyone, so we can work this all together, not fighting.
Thank you so much. Alexandra, do you have anything to add?
I think that the only thing I can by myself ask Victoria, then there was a decision taken in which concrete place the clinic need to be built. Did you ask anybody from local people, like shamans, guys, do you approve the place? Are you okay with it?
Yeah, it's like, I will make the long story short, but yeah, we had to make like free rituals to ask the local gods of like earth and water and spirits of this to that they approve the construction. So we didn't fight with people saying like, are you crazy? But we just did what the people tell us to do, because they were very worried that if we will build there, because we was building together with the local people, all men from our village, they work on the construction side. So they were very worried that they will build and everything will be ruined because gods are not approved, but they approve. So, and we, the clinics still run, like free earthquakes, we're still there.
Wow, that is truly amazing to hear. And you bring up a very important concept, and that is the bridging of, the traditional medicine and the new medicine, and not creating conflict, but actually getting it to work together. And once again, I can resonate with that, because in Green Hopes projects in Bangladesh, we face some of the same challenges of how do we make sure that our outside help is not, clashing with the inside knowledge that is already there. And there are challenges in terms of people not accepting the new medicine, or not women, for example, not being allowed to accept sanitary napkins, for example. But we have been able to bridge those gaps and not say one is wrong or one is correct. It's just about working together, because at the end of the day, our goal is to help the people. So thank you for sharing that with us. I see that we do have more questions, and our next question is for Mozamel from Sitlali. And the question is, what has been the biggest challenge you have faced during your leadership? So Mozamel, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Ali, for a hard question, I would say. It's not an easy one to answer. But before I answer the question, I actually didn't take enough time in the intro to basically tell you what we do, so you understand a little bit the context more, and then I can do so. Maybe I would take the chance to first go through that and then take the question. Yeah. So I am originally from Afghanistan. I moved to Berlin, Germany, roughly 6 years ago, and I myself fall in love with the entrepreneurship and the tech ecosystem that exists, the vibrant tech ecosystem in Berlin. I started a startup initially, first working with refugees, matching refugees with locals based on social activities. So people used to call us the tender for refugees, which is a wrong analogy. Our goal was basically to find a local buddy and work with people to to be able to integrate and have someone on your side to understand each other better. That later evolved into a job platform where we match over 30,000 people with companies from all over Germany in the period of 5 years. And one of the key learnings back then for us was that people who were equipped with digital skills were the easiest to get at least an interview, then to a job as well in later stages. And that basically encouraged us to start a coding school for refugees in Berlin. And the coding school exists for more than 5 years now, with over 1,000 people trained, 90% success rate in terms of job placement. And that just basically made me thinking about how can we leverage and take this back to Afghanistan. The reason why it's important is that 63% of the population of Afghanistan is below the age of 25. So it's one of the youngest population on the planet. But there's an unfortunate statistic to that 42% of that population remains untrained and unemployed. So we wanted to create the digital infrastructure that people can learn digital skills and work in the open economy, either become a freelancer or do something for themselves, or become entrepreneurs and solve local challenges. Now, just for the background, that was something that I missed initially, and thank you for giving me the time to say that again. Coming back to the question from Said Ali, I think as a leader, as a community leader, be that as a CEO or a founder of the company, you face a lot of challenges in terms of that you're the driving force. You kind of rally people behind you. You have your dream and you have a vision that you want to sell to the people, and convincing that. And basically, you don't want to end up being in a situation where the people feel betrayed, or they think like, we rallied behind a person with the wrong motives. And also, so context and situations are different. I think I can tell you that mostly what happens is, for example, we have had people who were super motivated. The work that we were doing in Afghanistan this year, that they resigned from their permanent jobs that they were doing, and they started to basically invest their energies and effort with us. And we realized after 4 months that we wouldn't be able to pay everyone because of the cuts and the challenges that we faced. And this is the time that how do you basically keep the lights on, so to say, but in the meanwhile also make sure that you don't lose those people, because those people have given up on that. And was been a key challenge in learning as well, that how do you learn as a leader to make sure that you protect the people who work with you and who relied on you. And this year has been proven to be the toughest one, but we have kept the momentum and we had the energy. And initially it was difficult, but we were able to turn a couple of things, and we have now almost everyone on a payroll back, and we have even extended to hire more people. But as I said, it's the trust is always the key, and that how do you make sure that people who rely on you and who buy into the vision and the dream that you have. Basically, as a leader, you're most often selling a dream to someone, and how do you make sure that you don't betray the people who follow you, or be transparent and open enough to tell them when things don't work out.
Thank you so much for answering that question. And I actually had a follow-up question. What age range do you usually address? Is it more children and young people or young professionals? Can you speak to us a little more about that and why you've chosen that particular age range?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, we definitely see that tech education can go to any age group, and we see that it starts as early, like nowadays, even infants have an iPad or some sort of a screen in front of them. So you talk about different privacy settings and those things. But the demographic that we focus on mainly is 18 plus till 35. But as I mentioned before, in Afghanistan, the population is 63% below 25. So by default, we are working mostly with youth, and partly it was, as I said, there's the youngest generation, and the second thing is that's the generation that actually is most affected from the unemployment, and also has the biggest chance to stand in this economy. If we come back to Germany, the demographic here changes. It's 25 to 40, mostly people who have already done a degree or have done some sort of a previous education, have tried a job here and there, and now either they think that they don't see future in their existing job, or they see more promising jobs in the tech economy or the startup world, and they want to learn and work. So two different demographics.
Thank you very much for sharing that with us. I see we have another question, once again from Victoria, and I think this is for Health in Health. How have you decided to launch this project in Guatemala and not in Russia? So Victoria, Alexandra, you have the floor.
So I think that it's the most common question that we receive normally. And because a lot of people still consider Russian the country that is developing, that for me is pretty much surprising, because I worked in a public health system in Russia. I worked in infectious hospital for infectious diseases in emergency room, and as well as in the villages, and it's not really comparable, the sites and the regions where we work in Latin America with Russia. But I normally don't say that we work in Latin America because it's so bad like in Guatemala and it's so good in Russia. I would say it's more because of where we started, and because my first mission was in Guatemala, and then I worked in Caribbean and Latin America for a while. And because my specialization is tropical medicine and public health and like low resource settings. But so we started there, and I think it's very important when people concentrate on one problem at the time, one project at the time, one country at the time, or at least one region, and do something pretty decent in this area. And I think in case it was what was Alexandra was telling before, that our mission is not just to help poor communities to receive good basic medical care, but more for us to be a better people and for our volunteers to be a better people. So it's not really important where do we work right now. And I still believe that Russian system is pretty strong. And right now it is the project of centralization of the healthcare in Russia. So they close all the small clinics and they open the bigger centers and basically improve the emergency evacuation from the smaller villages. So they basically do the opposite of what we are doing and what normally countries are recommended to do. So we don't want to fight the system either. We think that it's not really smart for such a small organization as us. So, but we always say that if somebody will tell us that they want a clinic in specific village and specific place, like it can be Afghanistan or Germany or Russia or Ukraine or whatever country, with a decent sponsorship and funding and volunteers there. I think in any country you can find gaps, you can find parts you can work on, and you can find you a job and things to do in any place.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. Alexandra, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I would like to add that both Victoria and Karina, the founders of the Health and Help project, first of all, in my opinion, are really courageous and very passionate leaders, and they love what they do. And this is what attracts many people to the project as well. And then they see the actual result. They see how the clinic are working. We're very, very transparent in what we're doing. So we're not, we're trying to distribute all kind of information via different sources. Also, I would like to share my observation that our founders sometimes tell to the team, to us, that there are a lot of ways to be happy, but there is one way to be happy while helping others, is to stop doing it for others, people admiration. So it is important. It is important to start helping, to start doing it for different reasons. For example, to become a better person. And this is what's important here as well.
Yes, absolutely. I could not agree more about that. And I think that it is I think that is a common thread that runs amongst all of the panelists, that we love what we do and we do it because our goal is for the greater good. So thank you for sharing that with us. I see that we have another question. And this is, I think, for all of our panelists and a bit general. What is the best way to grow in the culture of peace? I would also relate that to the theme of today's webinar about transforming wealth and welfare into prosperity. And I'd ask all of you in your regions and your countries, what are the 3 things that or more that you would like to implement in terms of improving welfare and ensuring a culture of peace? It is a broad question, but let's see where it goes. So I'll start with Mozamel. You have the floor.
Yeah, absolutely. As you said, the question is quite broad, and also I think maybe we need a little bit more context. But if you go on a broader sense, any injustice leads to unpeaceful environment, and I think we've seen that that inequalities and injustices play a big role in conflicts. I mean, especially when I look at Afghanistan, the biggest reason for certain things that we are not at peace is, I think, a lot of those things lead back to that we don't have the equal distribution of wealth, we don't have an equal opportunities for everyone, there's not the education element. So in order to grow in a piece of culture, like to make peace a culture, you first have to see what are the core elements that you can bring into the society to make people aware of I mean, like, to put it this way, if you look at Afghanistan and the ages, the average age is that 63% below 25. Most of them have grown in war, so to say. Like, we have war in Afghanistan in the last 25 years. So those people literally don't know peace, what it means in a way to see. So that definitely leads to that mentality and to many things that would not be peaceful in that sense. And they see injustice, like you see the extreme. You mentioned that billionaires are growing, and you see that the poverty people below the poverty line is growing proportionally in that sense, so to say. So how can you live in a world where only 8 people have half the wealth of the whole world? In that sense, I think most of those things lead to injustice. But to come back to how you can make this a culture, I think peace starts within. So if a person, every person starts to make peace with themselves, this would basically lead slowly to making sure that other people are in peace. As I say, it's a very broad question. I would have loved to break it down and to make it like more specific. So if the person who commented the question can give us more context, I'll be happy to take that. But so much so far from me.
Thank you, Mozamel. Victoria, Alexandra, would you like to answer in your context?
I would love to say that I'm pretty agree with what Mozamel was talking about. And I really think that if we want to change something or if we want to make improvement in something, it's always better to start small. And the smallest you can start is like yourself. And then influence the maybe like give some impulse to the people around. So I think that in our organization, we normally do that. So we always discuss what problems we do have in the countries, at the projects, in the village, in the community, like in the school, and so on and so on. And including like the groups of the volunteers that we have in the clinics, like what are they worried about? What is the, like, why is the mood not very good? Why we facing this, this, and this? And I think that we always start to find the cause in us as the leaders, as the managers. We always, when we face any problem, like there is like no medication in the clinic for some reason, for instance, so we never say like, oh, you're so bad, like patients are so bad, they're so sick, like doctors are so like irresponsible, they gave up all the medication and so on and so on. We always think like, oh, where we did wrong, like that our doctors don't have with what to treat people, and that our patients don't have something like some medication to receive. And I think it's very easy when you think global to go also like giving the problems away to circumstances, such a, yeah, it's pandemic now, so it's hard to get medication in the country, or it's like economy in the country and medical system is so weak, so it's very hard for work to work for us, so we like will work somehow, or like all our doctors are volunteers, so we can have like somehow okay doctors, maybe some good, some not. No, that's not the position we want to hold. We want to be responsible for everything what we're doing. So as every step we're taking, we think about like, this is our responsibility. We will see the eyes of these people tomorrow, and only we will be responsible if somebody dies because we were not working good enough. So I think if you start from yourself, that will always lead to the good things. And if you always like put responsibility for someone else, nothing will ever like get changed in this world.
Couldn't agree more. Alexandra?
Yeah, I agree with Victoria also a lot. I believe myself that ownership is very important in anything you do, and the ability to build an open dialogue with anyone in the team, the ability to share with the team the problems openly, anything, not only positive things, but also to be able to speak about what troubles and where we need to develop maybe ourselves, maybe our project. And also the respect. I think that we started with the respect at the very beginning, and this is really what is important, not only respect to each other, but also to people who are not like us. And we, all the volunteers, most of the volunteers which are coming to our project, they are not really familiar with the culture, with the traditions and everything. And what is important for us to show them, to learn together with them how to be able to communicate, even if the patient who is coming to the doctor cannot explain very clearly what is the trouble, because most of our patients are coming to the doctor saying, you know, I have pain in body, and they cannot explain where exactly. So the pain in body, and that's it. And you are the doctor, you need to be very accurate, and you need to understand more exactly what exactly, where exactly is the problem. And this is also a great challenge in the different environment. So it's also about the purpose, not to forget about why we're all here, why we decided to join the project online, why we decided to go to the project and join it offline. So why we decided to donate to the project. So this is very important to remember the goal, and to not to wait that people will come and tell you, you know, thank you for what you are doing. This is what you just do not need to wait at all, because you are inside of yourself need to be this measure of this thankfulness. And so we're all doing it not because of this, because it's a great opportunity for us to become better people and to help others.
Absolutely. All three of you bring up such important points. And I think these values are so important for not just leaders, but every single person. And yes, I completely agree that peace has to come from within you. The passion has to come from within you. It's not about what someone else tells you to do or leaving it to someone else. Because right now, the easiest thing to do is just blame someone else for all of the world's problems. But the question we need to ask ourselves is, what have I done to change this or address this problem? And for me personally, I started my work when I was 7 years old. And I remember seeing a picture of a dead bird with its belly full of plastic. I knew something was wrong with it. And at that time, I'd attended a lecture by environmentalist Robert Swan, whose words, "the greatest threat to our planet is the belief that someone else will save it," really resonated with me. And I think that quote has never had more relevance than right now in this day and age, because there is so much that we're blaming others for. But the question really remains, what have we done to help other people? And you're right, it's not just about, people coming and telling you, thank you for doing this. We do it because we are passionate and we love what we do. And that is what is so critical and makes us special in this way. And the world really needs more people like all of you. So really, thank you so much for sharing that. I have another follow-up question to Mozamel, actually. I wanted to know, do you plan on expanding your project to beyond Afghanistan and the connection with Germany?
Of course, I mean, so our goal is basically to create blueprints and to create, an environment where we can scale and go to different regions. For us, more people, more reach means more impact, and that's the goal that we want to do. But we also want to make sure that we understand local context. We have the because in order for us to succeed, we need an ecosystem around us. As the famous quote from the Founder Institute, they say it takes a city to build a startup or to develop. So helping entrepreneurs also need the underlying conditions. But in the long story short, our goal is to in 2021 to build those blueprints to be able to replicate what we do in other countries. We have had discussions with. Initially, the idea was that we at least be present in every STAN country. So starting with Afghanistan, Tajikistan, Uzbekistan, and Pakistan. But nevertheless, I mean, I could see Start-Upistan working in Guatemala. Why not? It's just not related to one particular country or identity. The only thing is, how do we make sure we localize in the best way possible, and we have the stakeholders that we need. So hiring partners, technology, different those things. We would love to do, and if there's anyone in the audience or on the panel who would like to expand Start Afghanistan to other regions, I'm happy to chat.
Absolutely, that sounds great. And again, a very important point brought up in terms of localizing. Again, I resonate with that because Green Hope Foundation works in 25 countries. So we have to understand the issues of every single country, and not just that, but every single region, and ensure that everyone's needs are met. So, and I really hope you are able to expand and spread your impact to all of those countries and more. So thank you for sharing that with us. I had another question, and I think this is a more general question. How do you feel that your personal experiences have influenced the work that you do today? Is there any particular moment that inspired you to go in this particular direction? And anyone can start answering this question.
I
Victoria,
can start.
yes, you're unmuted. You can go.
Yeah, I think that for me, everything was pretty surprising because I was a very young doctor. I was 25 when I first came to Guatemala, and I had not that much of experience. And I was thinking that all the world is equal and everybody has rights and everybody has medical care and education, and pretty naive, to be honest. And I came to the very remote village. It was like 8 hours by car to nearest like health center, not even a hospital, like very like no electricity, no water, like a majority of countries where we all work in. So I was so shocked that that I'd never really thought through how lucky I was in my life. That I always like, I'm from the pretty average family from Russia. Like my mom is a doctor, my dad is an engineer, and doctor in Russia is people that receive not a high salary like they do like in Canada or US. It's like about like $100, $200 at that time a month. So, but still, I always had food to eat. I always had like place to sleep. I always was safe. Nobody was like bombing or like any bad situation. So I know how to read and write. And I came to the place where like 80% of women, they don't know how to. And where they couldn't get, I don't know, contraceptive pills unless their like husband allowed them to. And I'm not really like women activist, but I was shocked from all the factors that I saw, that the people could not get basic medication. They buy antibiotics on the market by pill because they could not afford like a whole treatment. And I think all this together was I was like, yeah, I was so lucky. I was so blind that I can just live my life without recognizing and knowing that there are like billions of people that never had anything what I had in my life, and I didn't do anything to get it. Like I was just like given. And I think all this just put me in a place when I think that, yeah, everybody have to give back sooner or later, with will or unwillingly. But yeah, and I think that it's a lot of people in our team who want to, they think that we do good, even though like no one is rich, no one is like a millionaire, but yeah, we think we have something to give, and this is my answer.
Thank you for sharing that. Who wants to go next?
From my side, I can say that my education, my first education is human resource management. So I was pretty not really creative in my the way after the university, because after the university I started the career in recruitment, and my last 10 years I spent as a corporate HR in big companies from Fortune 500 list. And slowly, day by day, during the last couple of years, I started having thoughts about what I'm really doing, where I can influence, and what will happen in case I will stop doing some things within the corporation, or will do them in another way. What will happen? And I was thinking about the goal, why I'm there, and why I'm spending my time and resources. And I'm very grateful to my teams, my previous teams, because with their help and their support, I understood what I really want to do, and I was observing like lots of subscribers on Instagram, the Health and Help project a couple of months, and then I saw that they posted the recruiter position, and I was thinking, I'm doing it 10 years, but it's a great transformation of my expertise. It's completely different area which is unknown to me. And I didn't mention it before. I started at Health and Help as a volunteer, and I was volunteering 8 months in a row. And after that, I got a role of HR lead, and I'm really grateful to the guys for this opportunity. And for me, this is what I can bring to the project, because as I said earlier, I cannot go in to the project, to the clinics, and sew wounds, diagnose anything. But there are also different ways how to support such kind of initiatives. And I want not only to be a part of this initiative, I want to contribute as well. And my contribution I see when we discuss the dates of the flights of the volunteers, and we know that, okay, guys, we know our first volunteer after the pandemic will come to the project. So we were so happy last time. Then the doctor from Ecuador was able to travel, even though she bought really 2 times tickets for her own money, and 1 time the flying company just said that no, we're not flying anymore, you can wait for the refund within a year. And it was not it is not a problem for her, because she also wanted to contribute. She wanted to go there. She wanted to spend her time and effort. And when it happens, I feel that I'm doing something right here. And this is my contribution, because as a recruiter, as a leader of the recruitment team, I try to use all my expertise to let the project live.
Thank you so much. And finally, Mozamel.
Yeah, I think the most inspiring part and influence on why I started what I do is basically my personal experiences. I told you in the beginning that I moved to Berlin 6 years ago, and I just basically got lucky. One thing led to another, and I discovered, and at some point I had the reflection: had I not had these chances or these opportunities, what would have been I doing? So first, thinking about what if I was living in Afghanistan, what would have been my life like, and what it is now that I could have, instead of going to that event and that kind of led one thing to another, and me being an entrepreneur, I could have gone to another event that might have led me become something else that might have not been the way that it was. And that just basically, as I think maybe you said in my bio as well, that with privilege comes great responsibility. And I think if you are privileged enough, there is a reason to for you to have this opportunity, and you should just share that. And that resonates. I think it's just basically I want to share the experience that I have, and people have the choice to choose if they want to do it or not. At the end of the day, it's actually just basically taught to us that knowledge is a power, and with that power also comes the responsibility of spreading and giving to other people, and that goes along those lines to see. And most of the part, this is just basically seeing on day-to-day basis that what it could be, and I get inspired, and I want to share that.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that with us. Now, today, our topic of discussion is about wealth and welfare, and translating that into prosperity. In your opinion, amongst all of the stakeholders, such as governments, corporations, civil society, academia, or youth, who do you think should be taking the lead in bringing about this transformation of wealth and welfare, and why do you think so? And I'd urge all of you to relate your answer to your work as well, and how that influences your opinion on this. So who should take the lead? And who wants to start? Mozamel, let's start with you this time.
I can go because my mic is still on. I would say that, we said that we cannot put responsibility or blame on one person to just say, okay, no, government should do this, and we should all be sitting. Youth, corporates, civil society, NGOs, nonprofits, all of them have responsibility to start and to do things that actually would lead to that. The greatest assets that we have are the youth. So I think if everybody does their part, if government recognize the potential of youth being the resource in terms of investing in that and taking this as a responsibility, that will be a great opportunity and like potential well used. The same way, if corporates think in terms of their responsibility, but also for their own stake, I think at the end of the day, if in the long run corporates want to survive, they have to have people who are there who can afford to either take their services and products, or also have people trained that they can work for them. So the responsibility is a joint responsibility, and I think in that sense, we have seen that nobody's too young to start, and nobody's too old to give up. In that sense, I think age, gender, and religion and sexual orientation, that doesn't shouldn't be a way as a barrier seen by any way. People from all walks of life can do their part and lead, and I would never limit the responsibility to one person, entity, or organization.
Absolutely, yes. It's a shared responsibility for all of us, and social determinants have nothing to do with our capability. Thank you for sharing that. I see, Alexandra, you've unmuted your microphone.
Yeah, just a quick comment. First of all, I agree. Thank you for your opinion. And in my, let's say, words, I would say the same. I was thinking about the cooperation, that all these institutions, in ideal world probably, but I believe that there need to be cooperation and collaboration between all these institutions in order to use them really in a proper way. And for those who want to drive such kind of initiatives, charity, or any other initiatives, they need to have access to the institutions if they need help and support. And from country to country, this opportunity to get this access or any kind of support is differ a lot. And it would be great if we had more options, I would say.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Victoria?
Yeah, I want to say that I really believe that, I really agree with what Mozamel started talking about the collaboration between the different institutions and different parts of basically holders. So speaking about the nonprofits, and that there are a lot in each country, I would say that my perfect future is when nonprofits are more, um, how to say it better, and then when they see more broad what is happening in the country and they collaborate from the beginning more with the governmental structures, even though it's not always comfortable and it's hard to talk with the people that work in government, and that some of those people don't want to collaborate themselves. But I think when there is not very good connection, we're getting to the points where all the nonprofits are located in like certain regions where one like first nonprofit started, for example. So just not to be alone and not to go to like more dangerous, more remote areas where they don't know anything and people want to help, but it's hard to go somewhere where everything is unknown. And in Guatemala, we have, for example, like 400, like 20 something, like medical clinics not registered as nonprofits. And majority of them, like 99% of them, are located around two touristic areas. One is the lake that is famous, and the other is the previous capital that is also pretty famous tourist spot. So all the other territory of the country is pretty much empty. And it's not because the help there are not needed. It's just because it's very scary when you don't know like anyone there, and there is no organization working. There is not people from the government that want to like come and collaborate with you very openly. It's very hard for the small nonprofits to start. So I would just say that when like if, because a lot of youth will see this and a lot of youth might want to start something or collaborate with something like in the future, don't be afraid to take steps in the deep waters, and don't be afraid to go where no one is working. We did this twice and we're still not regretting, because there you can see a very big impact. And as soon as you start to talk with government and with the ministry and with people that are working, even though sometimes the system is broken, there's still good people there, and there's still people that will want to help. And if you're active and if you see your project to be growing in any of those places, it will be a big impact and you will be satisfied with your decision. Though like if you will take the easy steps in the beginning, it might be like pretty useless at the end. So that would be my advice.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And yes, cross-sectoral collaboration is so crucial. And that is why I believe that out of all of the 17 sustainable development goals that are there, goal 17 partnerships is so, so important, because it really underscores the importance of everyone working together. And more than cross-sectoral, it should be multidisciplinary, intergenerational. It's just all of us joining hands to create a better world. So thank you for sharing that. And the last question that I would like to ask all of you is that, now we have the opportunity to start afresh, and thinking about 2021 and just the future, what are the things that need to be avoided in the process of transforming our wealth and welfare for human prosperity and well-being? And how do you feel your work can help with this process? Let's start from in reverse order. So Victoria?
I think that's a big question, because nobody knows what will happen in 2021. Will it be even worse than 2020, or it will be better? But I think that every situation like what we face this year is for good. I believe so, because for instance, before we had a big online team, but during this year we grow it really huge. So for 2 clinics that are serving about like 25,000 people, we have the team of 57 people, I think, like now online, working like not full time, but a lot of them working long hours with us. And the system that we built around that during this time could have been never happens if we only have if we didn't have this lockdowns, if we didn't have to be like kind of pushed in this situation. We would never be so devastated with finding funds, because before we could have some material donations brought from the other countries, but this times we had to buy everything for the high prices in the countries. So we would have to fundraise like very, very hard and a lot. And we also would have to work with motivation of our volunteers, because it's very hard to be locked down in the clinic in the small mountain village where you know that you could not go home. And it a hard work of the managers and the coordinator teams to just explain and try to keep your people healthy, not just physically, but mentally. So I think for the future, we will just learn from our mistake and what happens in this year. We will be better prepared, because we were definitely not knowing that it can be a situation where, for example, people could not go away from the country. We would be always thinking like, yeah, everybody can leave and come at any time, and any events that happens will like be somehow resolved very quickly. And as well as the prepare better with our like stock and the funds and the volunteers and so on and so on. So I just think that with if all of us who work for like non-profits and the small organizations have like a plan B, and now probably like plan C and D and E of all the situations. Of course, we could not like predict everything and prevent us from all the situations. But I think that now we learn that some crazy things can happen. And I would say that we need to just be positive and adapt for this situation that could happen.
Absolutely. Alexandra?
I don't know what else to add to what Victoria has just said, because it's like everything I was thinking about. But seriously, I also think that any crisis has a great ability to highlight where we need development. And that's why every crisis is not 100% negative. There are also positive things. It's like in Monty Python song, always look on the bright side of life. And I think we didn't lose this ability to look on the bright side of life, even though we didn't know that we can work in such kind of environment with closed borders, with no volunteers. We didn't know our opportunities, I think. And 2020 brought to our attention that we could have prepared ourselves better to some crisis situation. But from another side, you are not able to be prepared 100%. You will never be ready 100% for anything. So you always need to understand that so if you feel that you're ready to do something, to step forward, you need to do it. And if there is a crisis, there are always options. And it's also about the flexibility, about the ability to take the decisions. And it's about the decision quality. And I think that this year also shown our project how great our team can work even in such a stressful environment, and how our leaders can engage us, even though we're all thousands of miles away from the clinic. And I think this is a really unique and rare ability, person's ability of our leaders. And so, yeah, I think 2020, we never know, probably next year will happen something else. So maybe we will never have any year ahead like we had before, but we need to adapt.
Absolutely.
We need to move on.
Yeah. We absolutely do. And hopefully 2021 will be the most positive and awesome year yet. So that is our hope. Last but not the least, Mozamel.
Yeah, I think most of the points have been highlighted, but I think the great thing, what has happened also in 2020, has identified most of the problems that we have. The most often we kind of ignore those, but now you can't. Everything is more or less put on the radar for you. So it's actually now the responsibility of every stakeholder to say that what is my job to do. I think you've seen that the inequalities, the most important one is the distribution of wealth, in a way to see that how everybody can get an equal opportunity, or to an extent that how people can play their role to do. So that would be a key driver. And I think if I understood the question right, it was what can we do to achieve prosperity, and how can that resonate with our organization, right? That was yeah. So if you're distributing wealth, we are there to take. Just kidding in that sense. But basically, I think the most important element is that we know where the problems are. We just need to start working on that. And as Alexandra and Victoria both highlighted, that everything brings it good. It's good with itself. And I think with the current challenges, we have also seen that no matter how much we put ourselves in different boxes and classes, at the end of the day, something like a pandemic comes, it doesn't care about if you're rich, if you're poor, if you are well equipped. Like people in the Silicon Valley and other places in their bunkers of apocalypse, and those things still cannot actually keep you away from a virus as such. So I think at the end of the day, what fundamentally means is staying humans, looking at each other as a fellow citizen in them that way, and looking after one another, and making sure that we don't leave anyone behind. And that's the way to go.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, panelists, for such a wonderful discussion. And as you said, we are truly at a crossroads where any decision we take or dither over will really determine the prosperity, well-being, and survival of not only future human generations, but also of our planet. But the pandemic pause is the greatest opportunity of turning things around, as discussed today, of shifting the frontier of what is possible. And now, in the face of this unprecedented crisis, countries are making bold choices to rapidly expand social protection, invest in a green economy, and close the digital divide so that we can build forward better. But now we as young people must seize the moment to drive this change and not get distracted by the tokenism that relegates youth to only protesting and striking. We should have a seat and a voice at every decision-making table, because only then will we be able to change the status quo. So transforming wealth into wellness, into prosperity for the human race so that no one is left behind, will therefore require multilateralism, collaboration amongst all stakeholders, and it will need the seamless engagement amongst all levels of governance, a new form of public-private partnerships, and a redefinition of policies. And at the same time, it will also require a new level of political will, and above all, leadership that is embedded in empathy. And as young people, the onus will be upon us to drive this process of change fearlessly and with the passion that only we can bring to the table. So thank you so much for being with us today. Please stay safe and have a wonderful day. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye.